tell everybody what the main conflict is?
I do, but like I'm like so distracted by your hat. Like, why are you wearing? I like just noticed you were wearing.
Because it's cold outside and I had to take the dog out.
This is real life, people. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. We're back with another review of Black Lightning. This is episode 11. This episode is titled Black Jesus, the Book of Crucifixion. In this episode, we see Jefferson kind of dealing with the whole aftermath of people kind of getting suspicious that he might be Black Lightning. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about how that affects everybody within this episode, as well as some other things that happen in as well going on.
If you are new to this channel, make sure that you click the subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications every time we do a new video. I said that wrong. Click the bell for notifications so that you know every time we do a new video. That sounds better.
Sounds right to me. All right. Either way, click the bell. Episode 11. I really like this episode. One of the things that, I'm not saying that the show's gotten away from it, but one of the things that like really got me hooked to the show was just within the first couple episodes how they really addressed Black culture as well as real life events that have kind of happened, and then they kind of tied that within the story of Black Lightning. Mm-hmm. In this episode we get a little bit more of that. Once again, not saying that we haven't got a lot of it in the last couple episodes, but I feel like it was very like in your face in this episode. Mm-hmm. Once again, we're dealing with the aftermath of the ASA, kind of the head of ASA kind of coming to the conclusion that, you know what, he believes that Jefferson Pierce is Black Lightning. This is mainly due to, you know, them trying to capture Jefferson, to question or use him as bait or as a, you know, torture tool to get Gamby to tell who Black Lightning is. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens that when Jefferson is there, that's when Gamby escapes. Right. So doesn't take a rocket scientist. And I'm glad, once again, we talked about this in our last episode, I'm glad they didn't play this stupid. You know, they didn't try and get overly, you know, clever or super, you know, decisive or anything like that. They were just like, the guy, you know, the guy in charge was basically like, yeah, it's more than likely it's Jefferson Pierce. Right. As well as we also found out another little secret, which is that the vice principal, which I cannot remember her name at the time.
Yeah, what is her name?
I don't know. I always thought of her as just the chick that was trying to jump Jefferson's bones. That's how I looked at it.
She still is.
We also find out that she's a part of the ASA, and she's basically been funneling students or kids to them once they've gotten hooked on the green light. So we get a little bit more get a little look into her and into her conscience, I guess is the best way to look at it, because we don't really know how she's connected to the ASA or how she became connected, but we do know that she seems to be having some sort of internal struggle right now.
Yeah, because she wants to jump Jefferson's bones.
Yeah, well, I didn't say where the struggle was at. It could be in her heart or it could be in her pants. I don't know where the struggle's really lying at, but she's having a struggle right now. So it starts out, the episode basically starts out, Jefferson and Anessa are continuing to do their tag team daddy-daughter superhero thing, where they're basically still hunting down these powered up kids that, you know, have been missing for a while now. Right. And the cool thing is, one of the new things that we see in this is that Gamby's now back in the fold, it seems like. Yes. So Gamby's kind of running point like he used to and kind of giving them directions. And it's kind of like a split screen type of thing. You know, in one shot we see Jefferson and Anessa trying to hunt down these kids. In another shot we see the vice principal talking to a scientist about how they can't continue to allow Black Lightning and Thunder to, you know, continue to screw up their plans. Right. Which is really cool because it gives you that effect that they're closing in on her. But surprise, surprise, they're not. You know, they ended up, in fact, all Jefferson and Anessa end up finding is just a warehouse full of weapons that are meant to kill Black Lightning. Which, like, as far as intros goes, it was interesting, but at the same time, it was kind of like, all right, just let's kind of pick up where we were left off and continue to show how Anessa and her dad are working as a team, which I think is really cool. I think they've picked it up. As far as like superhero duos that we've seen in DC shows, I think they've picked it up the fastest.
That's true.
You know, and I don't think it's just Jefferson's experience. Like, I mean, you know, Oliver was super experienced before he had Diggle, and Barry was kind of experienced before he got, you know, Cisco, and the rest of them, you know, kind of in the swing of things.
Cisco and the rest of them.
I mean, yeah, because he has like an entire roster.
Yeah.
So it is really cool to see that dynamic kind of work out between the two of them. Following that, though, is, like I said, we get into the main conflict of today's episode. So basically, the ASA puts a plan in motion where they're just like, look, they're so convinced Jefferson is Black Lightning, so they're like, look, they can't go get him, because if you guys remember in last episode, Jefferson has moved his family. They're kind of semi-hiding. Right. Not really hiding, it's more so like they're just living in his old house.
They're hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. So essentially the ASA basically puts a quote-unquote hit out on Jefferson Pierce. You can't kill Jefferson Pierce because you don't know if he's Black Lightning or not, so they decide to have him arrested. And that's where I think it gets very, very real in this episode. That entire sequence, there's an entire sequence where you see Jefferson from the moment he gets handcuffed and is interacting with the police because he gets arrested at school, which is obviously
that's embarrassing.
That's embarrassing for him, but it's also like for Jefferson that's a safe zone, not just from like gangs and drugs and violence, but even from the police. Like, it's supposed to be this safe haven that he's, you know, built over time. Right. And for that to be basically crashed by dirty cops, by him being, obviously he knows that he's being set up. It's the beginning of a very scary sequence, I guess, for me. I guess is one of the ways to kind of look at it for I think as a viewer, and obviously, you know, projecting as the character, because here's a man who's built his entire life to be a good role model, to be clean, to be an upstanding citizen, and then you have people barging into your safe zone, telling everyone around you that you're everything that, you know, you're the opposite of everything that you tried to build up. So with that, I mean, essentially, you have Jefferson being arrested, you have him being set up, the cops have basically planted drugs in his car, in his office, and basically are trying to basically say that he's been selling green light out of the school. And so once, like, as this is going on, you see Jefferson being handcuffed very violently, very aggressively, having a gun drawn on him when he didn't do anything except kind of raise his voice a little bit.
Yeah, and they drew a gun toward him.
Right. And so you go through that whole sequence, and then you have to, you know, so once again, as this is like an embarrassing moment for Jefferson, you have him being handcuffed and walked out of the school, where he runs into Jennifer, of all people. And remembering, like, Jennifer, obviously, we've had about 3 episodes of her with her powers probably so far, or this is the 3rd episode with her powers.
This might be the 4th, right?
3rd or 4th. Yeah. And Jefferson clearly, so you have this really cool interaction between the two of them, where Jennifer's getting really upset because she knows her dad's innocent. There's nothing for him. There's no reason for him to be arrested. Right. On top of the cops being really rude, and she starts to get upset, and you see her start to clench her fist, and Jefferson immediately knows what's about to happen, even though Jennifer probably doesn't. Right. Which is that Jennifer, I think, because they haven't really talked too much about it in the last couple episodes, or at least in the last episode, I don't think so much, that Jennifer's powers seem to be very attached to her emotions. When Jennifer gets upset, when she's scared, anything that has to do with her emotions going to high extremes, she tends to lose control of her powers. Right. And that's something that Jefferson quickly sees, and he quickly calms her down so that she doesn't have this outbreak, so that she doesn't mistakenly use her powers by accident. Which is really cool. Like I said, it's a really cool sequence between the two of them, because Jennifer, for at least for the last couple episodes, hasn't really liked her powers, hasn't really liked using them. But it's one of those few times where it seemed like she was coming very close to using them, whether on purpose or on accident.
Right.
Which
I couldn't really tell whether she was trying to do it on purpose or on accident.
Well, see, and that's where I'm not sure either. Like, I'm not sure if she's gotten to that point where she's starting to understand that they are attached to her emotions, and she's willing to just, like, she was in that moment, just like, screw it, you know. But it's like I said, that whole, you know, him calming her down, him doing what I remember. Like, my dad was in the military, so I remember him going off, you know, when he had to go on different tours in different countries and things like that. Like, he would have these talks with us that were very similar to this, like, you know, to be calm, and to be strong, and to not be afraid, and to be strong for our mom. So to see that same type of conversation played out in a very different situation, in a very serious situation, right, was really, really cool. So while Jennifer mistakenly was probably going to use her powers, we also have to deal with the other sister.
So this child, we always talk about the fact that Anissa, she never thinks before she's about to use her powers, or she doesn't think about, you know, her own strength. And this girl was about to use her powers in broad daylight, in public, in front of all these students, in front of the police.
On the police.
Yeah.
I mean,
your father's already getting arrested. Don't you think that's probably not the best look right now?
And even though they don't know it, or at least they probably could have had an idea, but at the moment, in this point in the episode, they didn't know why Jefferson was being arrested. Right. Which is something we kind of skipped over. Essentially, like I said, the ASAs kind of set this all up. So
dirty cops.
So they aren't really aware that, yeah, they're arresting Jefferson because they think he's Black Lightning. And so Anissa using her powers in broad daylight, like, she takes a breath and everything. Yeah. Like, it's in that moment, you're just like, she's not gonna be that stupid, is she? So from there, we go into Jefferson going through the whole, like, in jail process, like, going through that entire process. And I can say, you know, fortunately for myself, I've never been that far into the judicial process. I've been handcuffed, which is scary in itself. To have to go through that entire process, you know, him having to be in the jail cell, having to, you know, obviously him having to take mugshots, him having to go to a jail cell, him having to, and they show all of this, and it's very chilling because it's not something I would expect from a CW show. We've seen a lot of these heroes get arrested. We've seen Oliver get arrested. We've seen Barry get arrested, and we've never seen them go through this process like Jefferson has, where, you know, we see that he has to, you know, strip down, he has to do, like, the cavity search, he has to do all of that type of stuff. But yeah, it's a scary thing to probably have to go through, and obviously to see on screen, and to, once again, it's not that just Jefferson's going through this process, because I've watched plenty of movies, I think we both probably have, where you see people go through this type of process. It's different though when it's supposed, like, this person is a hero. You know, a superhero, not just a superhero, but they're also, like, a genuinely good person that cares about their community. And to see them being treated unjustly, because, I mean, even after Jefferson, you know, go through all these, like, you know, these necessary steps, he's getting beat up on the way to his cell for doing nothing. Yeah. You know, and it's hard to tell, is it because they know he's Black Lightning, or they think he's Black Lightning?
I don't think they know.
Or is it just because they think he's a criminal, or is it, and once again, it makes you think on a number of different levels. Is it just because is it because they think he's a hero? Is it because they think he's Black Lightning? Is it because he's a black man, or is it just because he's a criminal? And this is how cops in Freeland treat criminals.
I definitely don't think they know that he's Black Lightning, or think that he's Black Lightning.
I mean, it was just weird, because once again, I think it goes to the title of this episode, right? Black Jesus, the Book of Crucifixion. Jefferson Pierce is admired throughout this community, so it's very shocking that him, of all people, would get treated like this. Like, you would think...
But, I mean, if they think he's a criminal, if they really think that he was, you know, selling drugs or whatever.
So you're leaning more on that side, that you think it's because he's a criminal. Well, I think it's the criminal / he's a black man. I don't think it's just one or the other. I'm gonna lean more towards, I think it's because they think he's Black Lightning, and they were trying to get him to prove it within, like, those, because it's another thing, is you see during these scenes, there's a couple of times Jefferson almost loses it. He has to keep himself in check, and keep himself from using his powers, or to use a quote that Jennifer uses later in the episode. Why doesn't he just Black Lightning his way out? Like, there's a couple of times where he's very tempted to, and he easily could have, but he wanted to go through this process. He wanted to be able to. He knew that he would be cleared. He just didn't know how it was going to happen. Well,
let us know in the comments below which one you think it was. If you think it's because they thought that he was Black Lightning, or if it was just, you know, one of those police brutality situations.
Yeah. So other than that, I think another cool thing that we got, we get a good amount of Henderson in this episode.
I like this Henderson.
And it's primarily because, I mean, once again, Jefferson is in jail, and he already has technically a man on the inside because him and Henderson are such good friends. And if you guys don't remember, Henderson at this point has already discovered that there's dirty cops within Freeland. He doesn't have enough proof.
Right.
It doesn't seem like. I mean, he has pictures, but he needs a confession. I mean, a confession seals it, essentially. And so while Jefferson is going through all this, Henderson is trying to work things from his angle, from the legal side of like, all right, how can I get him out, even if it's on a technicality, which essentially is what Henderson did. Henderson got him out on a technicality because, you know, Henderson being able to work over the dirty cops in his department was able to discover that they did plant the drugs. It was able to get a confession off of that, and that right there was able to spring, which you eventually find out later in the episode, is what springs Jefferson out of prison, or out of jail. Sorry, not prison.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool, but at the same time, I think we're going to eventually see in the near future that Henderson and Jefferson are going to there's going to be a lack of trust, or I feel like Henderson's going to start digging into Jefferson a little bit more.
If he doesn't die first. I think I'm leaning towards your theory of
him possibly dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and it's not because Henderson should die, it's just he's making himself a target. And there's a sequence where Henderson, you know, busts the dirty detective that was basically leading the charge on arresting Jefferson. And as that guy's getting arrested, he even says, he's like, you don't understand how this works. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. And that is probably like the most cliche line of, oh yeah, somebody's about to get shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I was cringing because I'm like, oh, you're about to die.
But see, so I think it does. I think it keeps all of the people that I originally said may die in play. Because I think it keeps Henderson in play. I agree with you. I think it does kind of propel Henderson up the list. Because Henderson is doing something that is, if you go back to episode 2, where Lady Eve makes the statement that she has no problem with them believing in Jesus as long as they don't try and make a difference, or as long as they don't try and change things. Henderson essentially is rising to a position where he's trying to literally change things. And that could potentially get met with a serious amount of violence towards him that he wasn't expecting.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I think it also still keeps Lynn in the picture. And this is simply because, and I'm not saying that Lynn would be the target, but I think Lynn would be a casualty by mistake. Especially if someone like Henderson is the target.
That makes sense.
Because we do see Lynn and Henderson have a brief little interaction, because Henderson and Jefferson are friends, which I thought was very funny, that Lynn is so brutally honest, because Henderson asks her point blank, like, do you trust me? And she's like, no. Like, not even a hesitation, like, no. And this man has done nothing to you, for you, I mean, at least that we know of, that he shouldn't. Oh, we're gonna find out like Henderson and Lynn maybe had an affair. Maybe that's why she doesn't trust him.
Why did I know you were gonna go there?
Because I feel like it's just like that could be on the horizon. Like, why else would she not trust him?
I mean, I think she just meant in the situation that Jefferson was in, she doesn't trust anybody right now. That's how I took it. Because I would have said the same thing. I would have said, no, I don't trust you.
Well, so we go through that whole thing, and like I said, the parts with Jefferson in jail and him going through those different things really stand out. And it kind of takes away, honestly, from some of the stuff that involves Gamby, because Gamby has this good amount of redemption throughout this episode. Because while Jefferson, Lynn, and Henderson are focused on proving Jefferson's innocence as Jefferson Pierce. Anessa and Gamby are working on another end where they're trying to basically prove that, look, Jefferson Pierce is not, or at least trying to trick the ASA into thinking Jefferson Pierce is not Black Lightning.
Yep.
And they are able to successfully do this by some technology that Gamby builds, where they're able to, it's the classic like hologram. And it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was probably the cheesiest way that they could have got this across.
It was so cheesy.
Because it's essentially like them chasing a van
through
the street.
Just running.
And just like, which I don't like, that just would have, nobody had seen, well actually that brings up 2 points. One, nobody had ever just seen like Thunder or Black Lightning just roaming the streets.
That's why I thought that was just odd.
That's why I thought it was really cheesy. Like nobody's ever seen that, so all of a sudden it happens. And but the other thing that caught me, and it just like, it was a brief thought, is I hear like while Anessa was walking down the street, I heard somebody yell, "Hey, that's Thunder." When did that name get out there? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, she's been saying it in a couple episodes. Even when she told Jennifer, "Yeah, I'm Thunder," I said, "Well, who knows who you are?"
I thought it was very funny.
It was just strange. Like, how do they know that she's Thunder? Like, they've never like, I don't know. It's weird.
They've never really given her a title. Like her and Jefferson have never had a conversation about what her name would be.
No, so
yeah, it's kind of
interesting.
Yeah,
how they did that.
How she just kind of picked up that name and like there was never a scene about that. All right. That's gonna be a complaint. That's gonna be like my one probably.
That's a complaint for me too. I've been bugged by that for the last few episodes. So.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have seen that. Yeah. I mean, we've gotten it in all the other episodes, and all the other shows where somebody has had this cool reveal of their superhero name.
Maybe it's because Cisco couldn't name her because they're not in the same universe or whatever.
Dude, it just would have been nice for, I don't know, if she would have been, I don't know, it would have just been funny to have seen that sequence of them coming up with names.
I would have liked that, so. Shame on you, CW. Shame on you.
Right. But essentially, I mean, that's the bulk of the episode. Like I said, Jefferson obviously gets exonerated. Right. Because they find out that there were these dirty cops. Henderson does, I completely agree with you that Henderson puts himself like in the middle of the crosshairs of the ASA possibly. Because not only did he bust these dirty cops, but I mean he got a promotion out of it. And I don't know. The way these CW shows go, nothing good ever just happens to anybody. Nobody ever just gets good things that happen to them.
Nope.
So there's a good chance that Henderson is going to be met with some sort of violence or some sort of repercussions to his actions. He's going to die.
He's going to die.
I mean, probably. I mean, we've already had somebody paralyzed, so I guess they've already kind of used that up.
Yeah, he's going to die, and you heard it here.
So we have that, and then, like I said, the episode kind of wraps up in this nice little warm and fuzzy moment where Gamby's accepted back into the fold. Which once again, it's great. I'm glad they didn't drag it out any longer than it needed to be because, I mean, it's very clear. Not to mention, I was getting really sick of Anessa constantly asking Jefferson, "What's going on with you and Uncle Gamby? What's going on?" Like, look, child, you just don't know. And the minute you find out, you ain't gonna be happy.
Right, exactly.
Her of all people aren't gonna be happy. But, and I think once again, it was a cool little conversation between him and Jefferson because it was like a squashing of the beef, but at the same time, Jefferson being very honest, which is something I really appreciate about the show, the honesty that these characters have, and saying, look, I may never be able to forgive you for what you did, but I can never forget what you've done for me. And I think that is so true. I think there's a lot of people, even in our own personal lives, that may have hurt us, but for one reason or another, we don't cut them off or we don't completely hate them because we also understand how much they've meant to the people that we are now. So, very, very cool moment. It's going to be really interesting to see how they continue to progress going forward because, like I said, Jefferson is that Felicity Smoke, Iris West, you know, of the Black Lightning team. So it's going to be real, unless, you know, he dies and then maybe Lynn slides into that role. I'm just saying, like, everybody's on the hit list. Like, anybody could possibly die, like, in any episode going forward. There's, like, what? You were saying there's only, like, 2 episodes left?
There's 2 episodes left. 2.
So yeah, we're coming up on the finish line here with Black Lightning.
It's a little sad.
I mean, I don't know, it's already been approved for season 2, so we'll get to do a whole lot of speculation of what we probably think they're going to do next season. Which is going to be really fun.
If Henderson doesn't die on the last episode, he going to die season 2.
One thing we still haven't seen yet, honestly, and it seemed like there was going to be a really big build up to it, and we really haven't seen the fruit of it. What the heck is going on with Khalil?
I was actually going to get to that. Well, I mean, part of it is Tobias we haven't seen. I guess we're going to see him next episode, finally.
Which is
where you been.
Which is even more weird, but we'll talk about that maybe in the next episode. I guess
we'll find out next week what's going on. But, I mean, I hope they have Khalil in there because, what, did he just fall off the face of the planet?
It just seems... I'm sorry. When you watch the episode and you see the little trailer for the next episode, it doesn't make sense. We haven't seen Tobias in 2 episodes, and then all of a sudden he's going to show up at the school. Like, I really want to see how that unfolds because supposedly he wasn't supposed to be in Freeland at all. And now you in the school in the middle of the day. Like, somebody want to explain? And not like they're with Khalil or anything. I mean, they don't show that in the trailer, but you're there to fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait till next week because I need some answers.
But that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. Like always, make sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe.
Like, comment, share, subscribe.
That. And let us know what you thought of this episode. Let us know what you thought, what really stood out to you. Did it have you feeling any type of way emotionally? Did you relate to anything that happened in the episode? And like always, we will do our best to reply back to your comments and continue that conversation. So that's going to be it for us today. We'll see you guys later. Peace.